I think headaches are one of the most misunderstood things that I have come across. You find someone who ignores headache or pops up a pill and moves on. And then you find someone else who struggles with migraine and their life stalls for that particular day. And on the other side, we find people dealing with dementia. And the surprising thing is that people don't even talk about it unless they start facing the condition, dealing with it. So today, let's talk about understanding our brain better. If you do understand your brain better, is when you can do something about it. And to drive this conversation, I have with me Dr. Sonia Lal Gupta, who specializes in headache, and she's a neurologist by training. Welcome, Dr. Sonia,
Thank you
to
so
Wellbeing
much.
Voices.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Sonia, let me first begin with trying to understand the confusion around headaches. Why are some headaches are the ones where we get over by popping a pill, and then there are some where we struggle to find relief.
Absolutely.
So can you explain us these different headaches that are there?
Yeah. This is a topic which I think everybody knows what a headache is, but in a way, nobody knows what a headache is what I like to say, right? And whether we believe it or not, there are more than 300 types of headaches.
300 types.
More than 300 types. And the most common ones we all know about, migraines. I think everybody's heard the word migraine. Whether they have it or not, they like to say that they have a migraine.
Correct.
And the other common type is something we call tension type headaches. And then the third most common is cluster headaches, which we'll see. I would even say nowadays there's another fourth one due to our involvement with screens and posture. Cervicogenic headaches, which a lot of people complain of headache in the back and with their neck, and very common. And I'm seeing now young ones coming with it. So we really need to understand that having a headache is not normal. First, let's take this part out that if I'm in pain, sabko lagta hai, oh, it's a headache. How does it matter? Just take a pill, take whatever you want and function through the day. But what people don't realize is when it comes to a headache like a migraine, it is actually one of the biggest causes of disability in the world. It is that it can impact your quality of life to that extent. And only people who suffer from it know about it. So, when we get to the crux of what they are, it is important to differentiate what we are, and maybe we'll talk about that as we go along. But people should realize that if you're having a headache, which is very frequent. Now, for some people, let's say go out in the sun one rare time and once in 4-5 months they got one headache and now they're fine. Otherwise, they're doing fine, which is a bearable one. They're able to function through. I can understand you do not want to come to a doctor. But for people who are suffering week after week, even a couple of times a month, it is not okay. So I think that's what people have to understand, that if you're in pain, it takes one quick appointment to your doctor. Go talk to them, understand what it is. Then whatever is discussed forward can be, we can decide.
So when someone says that, they are getting a pain in the head, right? It's not just a headache, right? There could be something more to that.
Absolutely.
And I've heard that pains that you feel or experience when you're going through a migraine are really intense.
Right.
Can you explain, how would you explain the intensity of a migraine to our audience? Because the reason I'm asking you is because somebody who has never dealt with a migraine himself or herself will never be able to understand the intensity of what the person who's having the migraine attack is going through.
Absolutely. No, I think this is a very important question. So what is a migraine, right? Like when we talk about it. So migraine typically are one-sided, can be bilateral throbbing headaches accompanied with or without nausea and vomiting. So feeling of wanting to vomit with light or noise sensitivity. So if I make somebody explain it in simple language, what it would mean is that basically people feel a pulsating pain. They feel like they're going to throw up. They're unable to open their lights in normal light and they cannot tolerate sound to the point where they feel irritable. All they want to do is lie in a dark room and feel better. And that is typically what a migraine is. Now, when we look at a migraine, nobody believes a migraine has 4 steps. So the first step is something we call a prodrome. So what is a prodrome? Migraineurs who suffer from these kind of headaches, they know before the migraine comes that, oh my God, I'm going to get one today. There are subtle warning signs. For example, you will not believe, yawning is one of the most common prodromes that you see in these people. So they start up to an hour to up to even few hours before people start feeling tired, irritable, restless, which they cannot explain. And they kind of know that, yeah, maybe I'm going to get a headache, this is going to be a headache. Then when next phase that comes is, not everybody gets it, is the aura phase. Now aura is where some people, their brain, there's a full chemical change that is happening in the brain at that time. So people see these beautiful colors, some people get some tingling, some people have difficulty speaking. So the first time it happens to people, it's very scary. But these episodes can last anywhere from 5 minutes to up to an hour. So that's the aura stage. Majority of the people do not get aura. So it's only a very small percentage that get migraines with aura. Then the next stage is what we call is the headache and pain stage, where people have this throbbing headache. They may have a feeling of wanting to vomit called nausea. They might, and some people throw up as well. That can last anywhere from 4 hours to 72 hours. So right here you're looking at 3 hours. 3 days of the person that has been gone. They'll have light sensitivity, noise sensitivity. They'll want to lie down in a dark room. They'll be like, stay away from me. Now that is the pain phase. Then is the post-drome, where after the headache is gone, they're still exhausted for a full day, and that can take up to 24 hours to feel better. So you can see right there, 96 hours of a person's life is gone with one episode if it is not treated in time. So this is what a migraine is. It is a full neurochemical phenomena. It is not just having a simple headache. And that is why people, their personal life suffers, their professional life suffers, they are miserable. There's so much that happens when a migraine happens. So I think if somebody has these kind of symptoms, it is extremely important that go to your doctor, talk to your doctor. Doctor, I'm having these symptoms. How do I manage it? And with the right treatment and the right steps in lifestyle, you can manage your migraines too, for sure.
Dr. Lal, what happens is typically when people get a headache, and they're not aware yet that it is a migraine, they pop in a pill and they feel some level of relief, and they carry on.
Correct.
And this phenomena could go in until they go and get themselves checked. Right. What is the way, or what are the symptoms for a layman to understand that this is not a normal headache, that it needs to be checked, they need to take it seriously, they need to go and get some professional help, or to diagnose what could be wrong with them?
Right. So I'll put it into 2 categories. Now let's take the first category of people who just have purely migraines, the kind of headache I described. Now, if somebody has a headache where they're throwing up, simple as that, you should not be throwing up if you have a headache. If you have a headache that you're throwing up, you're having light sensitivity, then just go to your doctor. Now, the important part in migraine is that if the frequency is high. Now, what do we mean by high frequency? It could be that somebody is having headache once a month, but it's lasting for 3 days. 3 days are gone in your life. Then could be that maybe you're getting 4 attacks a month, but they last for 1 day each. Right there, you're looking at 4 headache days in both the scenarios in a way. So we have to identify that if my headaches are occurring more than 4 days a month, where I'm in pain for more than 4 days a month, despite the fact that I'm popping a pill, I go through this whole phenomena, it's better let me go to a doctor, understand my triggers, understand what I can do from a lifestyle point of view, understand what I can do from a medicational point of view, and how do I manage it better. So that would be the part where you should go. Now then, there are headaches which people might have, which they've never had headaches before. Let's say there's a 45-year-old who's never had a headache before, and suddenly now you start having headaches. You're having blurry vision. When you're coughing, your headache is increasing. Or when you're lying down, your headache is getting worse. You feel that maybe your speech is not the best. Now, anybody with a new onset of headaches that they've never had before as a child, because migraines typically start in people when they're in their teens. These new kind of headaches or a sudden headache. Now, suddenly you've never had headaches. All of a sudden, you have the worst headache of your life. Please go to the hospital right away. So, there are two different categories of when you have to identify. That is not an emergency. This is an emergency. So, anytime you get a sudden headache, you go to the hospital right away. Anytime you have headaches that are causing intense vomiting, blurry vision, you feel that you're getting weak on one side, get to the hospital right away. So you really have to identify that what is my emergency headache phenomena versus what are these migraines that I might be having that are taking over my life, but I'm ignoring just because everybody says, oh, it's just a headache.
But tell me one thing, it is very interesting because one is not everybody has the same symptom.
Agree.
Like you said, even if you don't have a nausea,
right,
but if you're having a headache for more than 3 or 4 days in a month, it is something that is of concern. You must go and get yourself checked. Now, when suddenly, like you said, in the age of 40s, you suddenly get a headache which is unbearable, could there be something which is not a migraine, which needs attention? So, could headache be a symptom for something else as well?
Absolutely. So, headaches like a sudden severe headache out of the blue, which people say is the worst headache of their life, could be a sign of subarachnoid hemorrhage. Not to scare, our listeners in any way, but the point is that you've never had a headache before. All of a sudden, boom, worst headache. And the people who suffer from it know it is one of the worst headaches. That could be subarachnoid hemorrhage. That means, what is subarachnoid hemorrhage? Your artery might have a small ballooning in your brain and that bursts, causing blood to come all over and causing that headache. So that needs immediate attention. Those are probably the most dangerous headaches. So that's why we say, if somebody gets a sudden severe headache, and it is not killed, that headache will slowly get worse. It'll be a boom. They're called thunderclap headaches.
Okay.
Because they're so severe. So that is a medical emergency and you have to get to the hospital right away. I agree with you. Everybody's headache is so different that this comes down to how you have to identify it and manage it. And I think one mistake people make with headaches is they wait till the headache is in the worst possible condition before they even take something to relieve of the pain.
Right.
And the way our neurochemicals work, the way this phenomena happens in the brain, when you wait too late, it actually causes a process in the brain called central sensitization. Where the thalamus, which is the area which we sense with, gets very sensitized. So pain becomes, even when you take then a pain medication, the pain doesn't go away. So then it takes longer to go away. And these people, when you'll talk to them, they'll say, do not touch my head, because even touching my head is painful. They cannot comb their hair because their hair is so sensitive. Right. Sometimes that pain is so bad and they've not treated it in time that the pain goes to their arms, it goes to their legs, and they feel their entire one body is hurting. So we see all kinds of people. That's why it's important that when you have any kind of a headache, it's good to go to your doctor and talk to them. Another very common type is tension type headaches, which I think are more common nowadays, where people just get a dull ache on their temples or in the front part of their head. And they'll say, I have a heaviness. I can function through the day, but it is an ache that kind of continues. So it's important again to see how much is it affecting it. Even though they're called tension type headaches, it's usually because of muscle tension. But what could be the reason? Could it be lack of sleep? Could it actually be stress? Could it be something else? So it is important to talk to your doctor and understand what could be the reason and what is causing this.
But tension type headache, one is, how do you define tension? Because so you don't know what could be triggering the pain in your head.
Right.
And second is, when you were talking about the 4 stages of a migraine, and you spoke about initially the symptoms like yawning or feeling lethargic, etc., or you feel that something is going wrong, and then the aura part of it.
Right.
Is there something that the person who's dealing with migraine should be doing at that point in time so that it does not lead to pain? और वो pain आएगा ही, ऐसा तो नहीं है?
So typically, if somebody starts recognizing what is the cause of their headaches, A lot of times, sometimes people do take more hydration and all of that, because when you come to simple causes, let us understand that trigger. In India, one of the most common trigger is sun. People go out in the sun, 10 minutes in the sun, and they know that, oh my God, I'm gone, right? Like that is their attitude. Or dehydration. Now, it could be interlinked, where we feel that we've drunk enough water, but we haven't. And that could all be that you're going out in the sun, you're losing more, and your brain is just so sensitive to even a minute loss that you end up getting a headache.
Right.
You know, so you not eating their meals on time, missing their meals, another trigger right there. In women, menstruation is a very common cause. So now let's say I'm that patient, I know I'm going to get a headache. An ideal way would be if I recognize my triggers and I know my headaches are not very frequent. When I say not very frequent, they're less than 4 times a month, or maybe 4 times a month, 4-5 times a month. I can actually take a very mild dose of a painkiller. Instead of going for a high dose painkiller when it's really bad, there are steps that when I manage my patients, I teach them, you know, step A, take this, which is the milder one. Treat it early with the mildest one, less side effects, let's do that. Step B, okay, now you have plan B right there. Now you can, if you're not feeling better, then go for plan B. So the easiest would be if they can identify their triggers, A, avoid the trigger altogether. You cannot, you know, if you're somebody, just go, you're going to go out in the sun and you're going to get a migraine. Please use the umbrella, no matter how embarrassing it is. A lot of times people don't use umbrella because it's embarrassing. They feel that how can I carry an umbrella and go out in the sun? And I'm like, it is what it is. You have to, right? Like you have to fight that out. So I think once you identify, then you can talk to your doctor what medication you can take depending on the type of headache you have, how bad it gets, how it goes up. So that's why with my patients, I typically tell them make a headache diary for the first month. It will give you a lot of information about yourself when you write it down. It will give me a lot of information to understand you in that 1 month. And I think once you understand your patient, then the real treatment begins of personalizing that care. There is no fixed formula in the world of headaches. I think, and we all have to realize that there is no fixed formula when it comes to treating pain in general.
But have you found that there are more cases of headaches now than ever before? Is that a reality in assuming that today people are dealing with more headaches today?
I think people have become more aware in general when it comes to health conditions. I also feel that now people sleep less. Sleep is one of the most underrated things we do in our lives. Most of us sleep for 5-6 hours and we're like functioning through the day. Everybody in the 30s and 40s want to do the maximum in their lives so they can do well, and they ignore sleep, or they'll ignore their fitness. So they are bound to suffer. They don't eat on time. Diets are, everywhere. We live in cities full of pollution.
Right.
So we don't know how much that is playing a role. We're eating microplastics. Whatever we eat nowadays, everything is microplastics. Actually, how much is that affecting us? We are on the screen all the time. Now, for somebody who might have a cylindrical number, and they're on the screen all the time, will have a tendency to get more headaches.
Right.
So I think we're diagnosing it more also. People are becoming more aware. But at the same time, we have ignored our lives so much so. What was never, right? I mean, every single patient of mine, when they go to sleep at night, let's say they're putting their head down at 10:30, they will not sleep before 12 or 1. Why? Because they're on the phone. They're watching Netflix, or they're watching some show, or they're doing this, or they're playing a game, or they're just looking at reels. But I would say when one person says, I don't look at phones, I actually clap for them, like, this is amazing, because we all are guilty at a certain level of doing that. So
absolutely. I keep saying that, we keep telling our children not to do it.
Yeah.
We tell them to keep their phones away, but without realizing that we have our phones in our hand.
Oh.
So, this is a very big challenge.
Yeah.
But since you brought up sleep,
Yes.
right? What would you define as the good sleep? I mean, there have been conflicting conversations around that. How long should you sleep?
Right.
There are people who say that, minimum 8 hours of sleep should be there. And then there are people, the spiritual masters, who say that, it's not the quantum of sleep, but it's the quality of sleep that matters.
Right.
That I sleep for 2 hours, but I get that much of comfort. What, according to you, since you've understood headaches, you've studied it, and you have a scientific background.
Right.
So what, according to you, would be what would you define a good sleep as?
So, when we give numbers, right? Like when you look anywhere at data, average 7 to 8 is that magic number we all talk about. Now, that is based on a big majority. There would always be people who can function with lesser sleep. Then there are people who can function with more sleep.
Correct.
But when we look at majority of the average, or when we look at research and what people have done, what we realize is that on an average, a brain needs 6 to 7 hours of sleep for an average person. There could be people who can do great with less, and there could be people who need more, otherwise they cannot function.
Right.
But when there was a study done in the US where they divided people into 3 groups. One getting no sleep at all, one group getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and the third group getting their 7 hours of sleep.
Okay.
What they found was the category B, which I think majority of us fall in, of getting that 4 to 5 hours of sleep per night on an average, their brains were equivalent to a brain of somebody with no sleep within 3 to 4 days.
Okay.
Which causes they weren't able to think reactively, they weren't able to actually process things the way they could. Their speech, the prosody with which they spoke was affected, everything was affected. So we don't realize we have to repair our body. We send our cars for servicing, we're okay with that, we get everything serviced, but what about ourselves? So sleep is the time our body heals. Sleep is the time our brain heals. We really need sleep. Now there are some people whose brain does function well with maybe those 3-4 hours of sleep. And great. But when we will go deeply into that, I'm sure if they were to do those tests, maybe they will still not do as well. But an average person should minimum to minimum try to sleep 6 to 7 hours. I say in our day and age, we are so busy, maybe with younger kids and everything, and so much responsibility. If I'll say that ideal 8 hours is practically not possible because of life, no other reason. So let's take a step back, think practically. At least aim for 6. At least aim for those 7 hours, you'll get 6 hours, and at least you'll be able to function through the day. But the amount of sleep people are ignoring, there's no routine. There is no routine, I think.
But I remember, Dr. Sonia, that as a child we were sleeping those many hours.
Yeah.
Right. But today, because of work, it's not because of work, but it's the way we work.
Yeah.
That has changed.
Absolutely.
We are spending more time at work.
Yeah.
Our parents never used to spend that much time. They would understand the importance of switching off
Right.
and focusing at home. They would spend time with their friends, etc. But we have gone through a lifestyle change.
Absolutely.
If I were to take a corrective action and now train myself to sleep for 8 hours, how should I do it?
So I think first and foremost, get away from screens. Where is the problem? I think the problem is not that most of us don't lie down in bed on time. I mean, the number of patients I talk to, even my friends, family, anybody I talk to, we do at a certain level realize that we should sleep.
Right.
And a lot of us make that effort. So let's say we're shutting down by 10:30, 11 also. We really need to put our phones away. We are exposing our brain to that blue light of the phone. And that again wires our brain to stay awake and does not allow melatonin to be produced, which is actually our sleeping hormone. So the first step is get away from your screens, which I think is the most difficult thing. I think adults are more addicted to their screens than even children at times.
Absolutely.
So get away from the screen. Actually start the process of doing meditation, relaxing your brain, decluttering your brain, and then try and sleep. But because we are in that cycle of wanting to look at screens, always thinking, I think a lot of my patients say, my mind is racing all the time. I'm just thinking, especially women a lot of times they're like, I'm just processing. And even men, I think it's very underrated in men. But there are a fair amount of men who actually have a lot of anxiety, but because they are men, they cannot express that anxiety. Women are more able to express it that I'm, stressed out and what do I do? But first and foremost, I think get away from screens. If nothing else, get away from screens and no caffeine after 3 p.m. If you are somebody that has trouble sleeping at night, do not even look at a tea or a coffee. People think caffeine means coffee. No, tea also has 40 milligrams of caffeine. So don't look at caffeine. keep yourself well hydrated, eat at least at 8 o'clock, 3 hours before you go to bed. Maybe have a cup of chamomile tea, have a routine, get into the routine. Don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself at least a month to get used to that routine, and you will see you will sleep well. But how many of us try to do that or give up very quickly?
You use these words sleep, you use the word stress, and you also spoke about pollution. Right? I understand sleep because, if I'm not able to sleep well, I'll wake up groggy, I'll feel very, very irritated, and my day goes really bad. When we are talking about screens, can you, you explained that there are hormones that need to be, what do you call it, produced, which help us sleep better. But when it comes to stress, how do I manage stress? Because I remember my father, he had BP problem and the doctor would say कि tension मत लिया करो, right? And he would always go and tell him that doctor साहब मेरे को बताओ tension कैसे नहीं लेनी है.
Agree.
Right? So can you and most of us, we know the challenges that we're facing. We do experience the symptoms of what is going on, but these are symptoms. Can you explain what happens inside of our body when stress is there? Right? And is there something that you have felt, could be done as a part of day-to-day living, which could help us deal with stress? Because आप stress हटा तो सकते नहीं हो, but you can at least figure out how I should deal with stress when it occurs. Right? So that would help our audience understand that, करना क्या है?
No. Stress is normal, bound to happen. I tell people, you cannot get away from it. And what is stress? You're basically trying to process how things are happening around you. Multiple things happen in our lives and you're trying to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, and that causes, whether personal, professional, whatever the reason can be. Now, we know for a fact that chronic stress is actually probably one of the most harmful things our body goes through. It is an underlying cause of blood pressure issues. It is an underlying cause, whether you believe it or not, of even sugar metabolism. It is an underlying cause of lack of sleep. Everything is kind of, so indirectly our heart is affected, indirectly our brain is affected, indirectly our kidneys are affected, everything gets affected. People complain of muscle ache, people complain of body aches, everything comes down to stress, because what stress does is it's working on our chemicals. We have neurochemicals in our body, we have chemicals in our, in our brain, in our body, everywhere, and they get affected when we are chronically in one state for a long time. Now, what can people do to deal with it? There is simple lifestyle, so you cannot get away from it. The stress is bound to be there. It is very easy to say, switch off your brain, tension mat lo. We all say that to each other all the time. Don't take stress. But you're not taking it on purpose. Life is putting it at you. And life loves to give challenges, I think, to everybody. Whatever it is, but wo aate hain and nobody can escape from it. So we have to accept that stress to rahega. So how do you work around it? I think the most important thing is exercise. Physical activity is one of the most important things to actually balance out that stress. What does physical activity do? It releases good chemicals, it releases good hormones, try and do a brisk walk when you're stressed out. After half an hour of the brisk walk, you'll feel much better. Your brain feels calmer. You feel a little bit more away from that stress that you were thinking. And I think that is what people need to understand, that physical activity needs to be done. In the olden days, our parents had a fair amount of still physical work, whether it was reaching work in a particular way, whatever it was. Not everybody had a car, whether they were riding their bike, whatever they were doing, or they were walking, it was a different world altogether. Nowadays, it's an ease in every way, but we're in a very sedentary lifestyle. How much physical work do we all do? So that's why I tell my patients all the time, that when you want to exercise, don't be like, मैं रोज करूँगा, I will do it every day. Very impractical, not going to happen. You will do it for 3 days, you will leave it anyways. Let's be practical. This is my belief, that if we say 4 days a week, I will try to do my walk, or 4 days a week, I will try to lift weights. you will be able to follow it. Cannot be hard on yourself. Nahi to you're taking stress to work out also. Then what's the point?
Correct.
Your stress has to be your release. So I think that is the first thing people should do. Second thing is meditation. Again, very, very underrated, very, very difficult to do. But mindfulness meditation, there are so many apps nowadays. Take those 10 minutes out in your life and do that deep breathing. Oh, if you will do it every day, that is one thing I say, do every day. And say 1 month, let me take a challenge and do it every day. Guarantee in a month, you will be much better in handling that stress because your brain gets rewired. Third thing is socialization. We nowadays are so much on our phones or we're doing things virtually, we don't meet people. But laughing, the human touch, think about it. Go and watch a comedy show. Let's say you're very stressed out. You go and watch a comedy show. You will laugh out loud. When you come back, you will feel much better. You will feel rejuvenated. Why is that? Because laughter again gets all the chemicals going.
Correct.
I like to say, Sara, chemical ka hi locha hai. Like, it is all, that is all what we are dealing with. And we just have to know how to balance that out. And I think third, which Indians do, we are very wired when we were young to not say no. We are taught kabhi mana nahi karna, never say no. At least I think we all belong from that generation.
Absolutely.
We never say no. We have to start learning to say no. If you cannot do something, it's okay to ask for help. If you cannot do something, it's okay to say no. It is difficult for me. And as hard as that is, I think if we start being easy on ourselves, I think a lot of it we should be able to manage. See, some situations are unavoidable, but at least these little steps if we do for ourselves and start giving our health a little bit more priority than we do, that will be the first step to actually handle stress better. People might say, everybody says exercise karo, ye karo, wo karo, but actually koi aur secret nahi hai. Jitne papers पढ़ लो, जितना कुछ भी कर लो, whatever you will do, whatever life coaches you all go to, eventually it will come down to these things, these 4-5 things that you have to do.
Dr. Sonia, you know what, when you were talking and I was just reflecting on my own lifestyle, I have long working hours. I am spending a lot of time on the screen and I have excuses to give because I have work to do. I'm connected with people. I have to respond to the WhatsApp messages. People are working from home, so I have to be virtually connected with them. So all kinds of excuses I have, giving me a reason to be on the screen. And then in the evening, I'm still on the screen because now I want to entertain myself, get over the stress. There are stresses that I'm dealing with at work, right, on the road. And then I'm also having irregular sleep patterns, right? Then when I'm on the street, I'm also dealing with the pollution levels, at least in the part of the country that I live in, right? What is this doing to my brain over time?
It is pushing my brain. Honestly, that's majority of the people. I think what you've described is all of us. Even if I were to say, I would probably say exactly the same scenario of what you have said, right? And a lot of responsibilities and everything. But what we are doing to our brain is, I think at a certain level, we are wearing it out. And we are not realizing it because right now we still have the energy. But lo behold, if we look 10 or 20 years later, what will our brain be? We will be the first generation to probably tell people what happens when you do this as a constant phenomenon. But I think we are pushing ourselves to burnouts. We are pushing ourselves to get anxious. So anxiety has become very common.
Yes.
The number of people suffering from anxiety is much more than what we saw maybe even 10 years ago. We are pushing people towards depression. All that is pushing people towards getting maybe more memory issues. That frustrates us further and then that cycle happens. So we are really harming our brain and we are pushing it to the extent of burnout. Of course, when it comes to, if you're not managing our lifestyle, then stroke and all of that is a risk that we have. And we are, of course, cardiovascular. If you're not managing our blood pressure properly, risk of stroke. Not managing our diabetes properly, risk of stroke. Not managing, and heart attack. So both the risk factors are the same. Smoking, which is so common in India. You will not see that much smoking anywhere in the world except in our country.
India. Absolutely.
Everybody is smoking like a chimney. Again, big risk factor. So there are a lot of things, that one has to look at. But basically we are pushing, I think, ourselves more than anything into anxiety and burnouts which is then manifesting as palpitation. So how many people will say, I get this uneasy, restless feeling where I started feeling anxious, where I feel my heart is racing. And they're not able to identify it. And then you ask them, are you stressed? Or they'll say, they'll be like, normal stress chil raha hai life ka, which they've taken as normal. But that is the sign your body is giving. Take a little break, step back a little and see what is happening.
Absolutely.
Before it becomes full-blown anxiety, where then you'll actually need treatment to get better.
I can't agree with you more that, we've stopped listening to our body.
Yeah.
Our body tells us
all
that,
the time.
But we are not listening to it. But tell me one thing, all that damage that it is doing to our brain, is this reversible? Because now there's a lot of awareness, but whatever it has done already, do we have to now normalize it, stay with it for the rest of our lives? Or can this be reversed? If today I realize and I'm willing to make those changes in my lifestyle, can this condition be reversed?
Absolutely. I think there's no reason why not, right? We cannot sit here thinking, now my brain is gone and what can we do about it? Not at all. I think we can still take steps to change what is in our control. For example, if we live in a city which is known to be the most polluted city in the world, we cannot change that phenomena. So that's not in our hand.
Right.
Maybe we can put indoor air purifiers, we can try to stay indoors, how much ever, but still that exposure will be there.
Absolutely.
But what is in our hand? Our working hours, what is in our hand? Exercising, what is in our hand? Eating healthy, what is in our hand? Sleeping properly, what is in our hand? Spending time with our family, how much of, I think, family life people ignore. So I think even if today we start taking steps, guarantee neuroplasticity, the brain keeps on renewing. That's why we tell people, learn new hobbies. You want your brain to stay strong for the next 20 years? Learn a new hobby, learn a new language, learn how to play an instrument. It's amazing how new neurons are formed. Our brain is so capable. We just don't realize the power of it. I think of...
So we need to train the brain to remain active.
Absolutely.
When we were talking about headache, it's something that you can feel. You can feel the symptom and then you can respond and take some action, whether it's medicine, resting. But then there are things like dementia. Since you were talking of brain, I think, this is another topic that we should touch upon. When we're talking of dementia, this is something which is like something silent which is going inside our body, and we realize it only when it's too late, right?
Many times,
What is it that we miss listening to our body that we do not recognize well in time that, maybe this is hitting me, which could become a challenge tomorrow?
Absolutely. So dementia is, I think, as we all are growing older and we're living longer, it's become a very commonly diagnosed condition compared to maybe what it was prior. And I think it is time that we start understanding what this phenomenon is. We have to understand that not every dementia is Alzheimer's, because everybody gets confused. Everybody says,
Can you explain the difference first?
Yeah, because this is I think a very important thing. So we have to understand dementia is a term, which means memory is affected. So change in, loss of memory, change in personality, difficulty doing acts of daily living, all constitute symptoms of a condition called dementia, which is a chronic neurological condition. Now, under the belt of dementia, under the heading of dementia, we have different types of dementia, where Alzheimer's dementia is the most common one. Now, this is the term everybody hears all the time. So, Alzheimer's dementia usually is age-related. In some people, so as people get older, first thing they'll notice is maybe I'm forgetting something. So, as you said, what is the warning sign? The warning sign from your body is something that maybe you were crisp with. So, one thing is normal forgetting, one thing is forgetting things that are not normal. Chabi kahan rakhi bhul diya is normal. Forgetting names, normal. It's okay. It can happen as we grow older. But forgetting where your house is, not normal. Forgetting to turn off the gas, not normal. Forgetting names of people you live with, not normal. Somebody who was excellent in math, now suddenly having problem doing even addition or not, could it be a subtle sign that maybe something is going on? Not normal. And in Alzheimer's, a lot of times people don't notice it themselves, their families notice it. But these are the little subtle signs you'll see that you know what they could do before, and sometimes things like word finding difficulty. I know this word, मुझसे वो word नहीं निकल रहा. Subtle signs that could you be progressing towards a condition called dementia, Alzheimer's. Now, under dementia, the other categories, which is very common in India, is vascular dementia. So, what is vascular dementia? If you have high risk factors like high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, smoking, whatever it is, over time, your arteries in your brains are getting blocked, the smaller arteries. And they cause these, not ischemic, but not mini strokes per se, but ischemic changes. So blood supply stops in multiple areas and it causes that area to shrink or to get damaged. So then these people have something called vascular dementia. So that's why MRIs are done with everybody who has memory issues to see if it's not vascular. The third type, common one, is something we call Lewy body dementia, where people have stiffness and memory issues. And the fourth, which is a common term people have heard, frontotemporal dementia. Because Bruce Willis, the famous Hollywood actor, was diagnosed with it. So there you basically, our frontal lobes make up personality. So these people have a very dramatic personality change. From maybe being an aggressive person, they become a very quiet person, or they become very disinhibited, where they will have no control over what they're doing. So those kind of personality changes, it's frontotemporal, along with all the memory changes phenomena. So if we feel, or if we feel our family member is showing signs which are away from their personality, or they're forgetting more than usual, it is a good idea to go to your doctor and get a couple of things. First, let's look at the reversible causes. Low vitamin B12, very common in India. How many people have it? I would say you get 10 blood tests done, 7 people have low vitamin B12 nowadays. So, low vitamin D3, again very common. We don't expose ourselves to the sun. 9 out of 10 Indians, I think, have low vitamin D3. Third is thyroid issues. A lot of them, these are reversible causes that can be diagnosed. So, it's important to check out that first. And then the last one is actually depression. If somebody is depressed, they can show signs of something called pseudo dementia. So they may not have dementia per se, but because they are depressed, the neurochemicals cloud the brain in such a way they're not able to think straight. And people think it could be dementia. So that's why it's important when you notice the subtle changes, get to the doctors in time. Nowadays, there are a lot of blood tests that are being offered to check the phenomena of if you have something called amyloid plaque, amyloid, particular proteins that are there in the body that actually get deposited in the brain. So there are tests to check for that. There are PET scans to check for that. So if somebody wants to get diagnosed, if they feel they have a strong family history, they can get these tests done. And now there are medications that are available in the early stages of Alzheimer's dementia that can be given through IV, which can actually destroy these plaques and cause a 40% difference, approximately 30 to 40% difference in the progression of the disease, which is huge.
There's a dichotomy here.
Yeah.
You know, that by the time, in fact, I would ask it as a question, that by the time your family is able to identify symptoms of dementia, is it too late?
Depends. I think I see all kinds of families. There are people who are very closely knit who do notice it early on, but a lot of time when people come to me, they've noticed it themselves, very honestly. So they'll come to me and they'll say, I'm forgetting more. And because now that awareness is there more and they have AI'd it or they have Googled it or whatever it is, they are concerned. So they come to me with knowing, asking one question, is it Alzheimer's? Am I going towards it? Because that fear is there. And so I think more commonly it is the patient itself. And then then we do tests. There is simple screening tests that we do with them, which can help us know whether they are going towards that. We'll do an MRI, we'll check their blood work. And then with that, we can help them diagnose if it is starting, to start the medicines, to start your brain activities, to learn something new. I have a story of a patient who I had who was 78 when he first came to me with memory changes. And he used to play the tabla as a kid, but then he stopped playing. So then I told him that why don't you restart learning the tabla? He learned it again. 2 years later also, he's actually not gone down. He's very stable. He's done a concert. He's doing so well. So we don't realize the beauty of learning new languages, new things. talking to our friends. So I think that would be important. When you go to a doctor, people do come. Then there is another group of people who come a little too late with their family members. Then there's not much, unfortunately, we can do. But one thing we still tell them, that keep the brain active. And socialization. Even recently there was a paper that said the best treatment for dementia is socialization. And COVID is our biggest reason. The number of people where dementia worsened during COVID was by leaps and bounds, because we had all these people who were in early dementia who then were stuck for 2 years at home with no friends, nothing. When they came out 2 years later, their scores on something we call mini mental status exam had gone down tremendously, showing the importance.
But is there a sweet window that is there where intervention can really help person either delay it or manage dementia? If you say that this is the age when it starts, and this is a time, had you come at this time, I could have done something that could have helped. So is there a sweet window that is there? And my connected question to this is that if I knew, like you said, there are certain test blood work that can help me identify certain signs that I could probably get dementia later in my life. What is a good time, irrespective of the symptoms, to get this test done so that you can, it's all about prevention and predictability, right? So is there a sweet window? And if there is a sweet window, what is the time for someone to get himself or herself tested for this?
So the sweet window, I wish there was an answer for that. A lot of factors go into diagnosis, very honestly. So if somebody has this very strong family history of Alzheimer's, then it's a different test altogether. Then we ask sometimes, do you want to check if you got both the genes in your system? If yes, do you want to know that you will get dementia, and what can we do about it? But I think the sweet window, otherwise in terms of a lifestyle, I would say 55 to 60 would be a good age. A lot of people start getting symptoms 70 and above. 65 and above is around when people start experiencing it. So I think 50 would be a good age just to get it done. Just to see if you want to get it done. Now, a lot of people say, if you have a family history, do you want to know whether you will get it? Because what can you do if it's genetic? But if you do not have a family history and you just want to know, then there are a lot of things in terms of lifestyle that you will have to do. And if you're willing to make that change, then you can.
I don't have a family history of dementia in my family, at least visible to me for the last 3 generations. But I tend to forget names of people that I would remember. Is this a cause of worry? Should I proactively get myself tested? And if I should, then what are the tests that I should be doing?
So I think instead of getting worried, this is actually common, very common nowadays. I also feel a big reason for it is, there's actually a phenomena called popcorn brain. I'll come to the test that we will do. Yeah. But so what do we all do? We're on our screens, then we go to our laptop, then we switch over, check our Instagram, then back to some reel, then working again, then doing that. So we're flipperting, flopperting amongst multiple activities in one go. In that the same duration, within the duration of I think 10 minutes, we'll do all those things and then come back to doing it again. So our brain really doesn't get time to focus. How do you plan to form new neurons or neuroplasticity to even take place when you're jumping from one thing to the other? So there's this phenomenon called popcorn brain. When people do it for a prolonged period, they actually get more anxious. So your neurochemicals are going all over the place, causes brain fog. You're not able to think that straight. And maybe some subtle signs would be of that maybe you're just forgetting names, if nothing else. So instead of getting alarmed, I would say first thing is let's go to the basics. Let's not think of the worst case always. First, let's think of the simple things. You get your blood work done, you look at your iron levels, you look at your vitamin B12, D3, thyroid. You check all of them and first see the reversible things. Then you look at your lifestyle. How much am I actually sleeping? Am I sleeping just 5 to 6 hours? Maybe my brain needs more sleep. Try to evaluate that. How much am I working out? So let's go to the normal actually causes. How much am I on the screen all the time? First, let me make those changes. Let me replenish myself. If my B12 is on the lower end, it may not be low, but it's on the lower end. Let me take my B12 supplements, let me take my D3 supplements, and give yourself those 3 to 6 months to see how much improvement you see. Then say, okay, it's not getting improvement or I'm getting worse, then okay, let me further evaluate it. Then your doctor can always do an MRI to see if something is required. But with something what you described, I wouldn't worry at all. I would say, first let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at all the reversible causes. Let's get you onto a better lifestyle, and you do that for 3 months first and tell me how you're feeling. And you'll come back and say, you know what, actually I'm feeling more fresh, I'm able to think better, I'm eating better, everything is better. Then you'll actually start feeling better. The problem is we are in a very impatient world. We want quick solutions, we want answers, but we don't want to work towards it anymore.
So what will be the lifestyle changes for someone like me?
So I think first thing is you have to start working out. Element of cardio. So a lot of people, when they think of working out, unko lagta hai, let's go for a walk. Now it's not just a walk. You have to actually do moderate activity, cardiovascular activity. So look at your resting heart rate. What is your resting heart rate? What is your maximal heart rate? So 22 minus your age is your maximal heart rate. Now you want to at least reach the moderate range, which is 50-60% of that. So you should aim for that. A lot of people, at the name of walking, do tohelna, or I say just walking around. That is not going to get your heart rate up. Yes, it will help a little bit, but not to the extent it should. Second thing is strength training. So underrated, but so helpful.
Absolutely.
The data that is coming out, see, as we grow older, we will lose muscle. Again, it's a natural phenomenon. Nobody can run away from aging, no matter who it is and how powerful the people are. Everybody is going to age, you are going to lose muscle. How do you protect your body? Is through strength training. I always say that, but do it under guidance. Don't rush into, I'm getting 10 kilo weights and suddenly I'm lifting weights. That's not going to work.
Right.
But in a stepwise manner, with the right trainer under guidance, it can be phenomenal for your body to start doing those things. So that would be the first thing. Start exercising. There is no excuse to not exercise. Until somebody has a bad knee, usme bhi there exercise you can do with your arms. I mean, there is no excuse. You can still lift your weights with your arms. There are still different things you can do. You can still do gentle yoga. So my point is, there is no excuse for not doing it until you have a medical reason that your doctor says, I do not want you to exercise at this time due to ABC reason. Second thing is actually hydration.
Okay.
A lot of people don't drink that much water. Petite women, most of them, we don't feel thirsty. So we will drink 1 liter in the whole day. Then we have to force ourselves. So actually, but if you drink 2 to 3 liters in a hot country like India, you will notice a difference. That how a lot of my patients, when they start focusing on water, the headaches actually go down.
Was it?
Simple as that. Yeah, simple tricks to do that. Then number 3, sleep. Get your good sleep in. Again, I know we're talking about the same thing, but there is actually no other secret. And eating better. Our diets are a mess also, like we eat out and what we do.
Absolutely.
But make sure you eat your fruits and vegetables.
I think it's a mindful eating, which is little different. Mindful in terms of being attentive when you're eating, and second is what is it that you put inside your body.
Exactly.
But when you were talking of popcorn brain and I wanted to understand, there are 2 schools of thought that come to my mind. One says that if you were able to multitask, then you're keeping your brain really active, right? And this other theory that comes to our mind is that instead of doing multitasking, focus on that one thing and do it well, because train your brain to focus on that and not be distracted by everything around.
Right.
What, as per you, is the right thing to do for any human being? Do you believe that multitasking is better, or as a scientist you feel that, let your brain focus on that one thing?
I think giving time to whatever activity you're doing. Multitasking is what? That you're handling multiple activities in one go. So as they say, women are better multitaskers. For example, they'll be managing home, then they'll do their work, they'll manage their child. Somehow they're able to do it. Men don't multitask as well. And typically, but the problem with popcorn brain is, you are jumping from one activity to the other in the span of a few minutes. So where is the focus?
Right.
But when you're doing one activity, so even when you're multitasking, you still have to give that one activity time. I might be able to plan and organize myself that in the whole day, maybe I'll finish 10 things that I want to do. But I need to be organized, but for each activity that I do, I need to take that time out and at least given my undivided 20 to 30 minutes of attention. Then your brain will learn that. That's what meditation is, right? You're focusing on giving that focus, which your brain is now not used to. So that's the difference. Popcorn brain, you're just not focusing enough and you're jumping from one activity to the other within a short time frame.
Right.
How many times do we don't have a phone right now, Nito, I'm sure we both would have looked at our phone at least 5 times in this duration. So that's what my thing is. That I think that's it.
Absolutely. Dr. Lal, if someone was listening to this conversation that we are having today and doesn't want to overcomplicate stuff that we are talking of, but then they want to do what is the right thing for their brain, what are the 2 or 3 things that they should focus on?
So for our brain, I think first thing is we should keep our brain active. Pehli cheez, that just as our body needs exercise, our brain also needs exercise. So actually taking out time to do these puzzles or even simple things like sitting with your family playing a memory game, things like that are also great ways to exercise your brain. So I think first thing is exercise your brain. What all can we do for that? We can, recipes. Try a new recipe. Try to identify what things you're eating. Go to new places. Again, your brain is visualizing new things. Learning a new language, one of the best ways to do activity for your brain. Learning a new instrument, one of the best ways to do. And socialize. So the first thing is don't be alone.
Right.
Try to please take your time to socialize with your friends and family. It is so underrated, and nowadays people get into this virtual world mode, but you really need to come out. The act of human touch actually makes a difference, and that's where I think no matter what anybody says about AI, it cannot replace humans completely, is because our brain works on that empathy and that human touch. So I think first and foremost, take out time to exercise your brain. And these are all different ways how we exercise it. We may not realize it, but we are exercising our brain.
Right.
Second thing, I know I've harped about it too much, but actually sleep. Your body needs to heal, your body needs to repair. We cannot run away from the stressors in our life. We cannot run away from the situations. We have to deal with it. So if it is possible for you, at least take out time and be kind to your body, listen to your body and give it that adequate rest. Try 1 week of sleeping properly. You will notice a difference of how much your energy levels are feeling great just by simply doing that. That's why, and another thing is if you have trouble sleeping at night, then actually take help. Not every treatment means going on sleeping pills. So this is a phenomenon, I think a misconception people have that if I'm having trouble sleeping, I will go to the doctor, they will give me sleeping pills. No, there are multiple ways on handling lack of sleep. You just have to talk about it and understand what the reasons are, and we can figure it out, and how people can sleep better. I've had people sleep better purely by stopping their coffee and tea after 5 that 5 o'clock tea they stop, they're sleeping better.
Right.
Simple steps like that. So it all comes down to each person is different. And of course, third, we've harped about it, physical activity, exercise, but there's really no other secret. And I would also say that take care of yourself. If you have high blood pressure, please take your medicines. If you have diabetes, please control your sugars. If you have cholesterol, please look at what you're eating. Simple things that ultimately affect your brain health. We take it so for granted when we are younger, but they do play a role as we get older. And hydrate. Because 70% of our brain is actually water. So,
on a lighter side, when they say कि stress हो गया है, तो and it should not take away your sleep, rather train yourself to sleep over it.
Yeah.
And find a solution the next day.
Right.
But my last question to you is that, बचपन से हमें सिखाया गया है कि पढ़ाई करनी है, दिमाग को तेज करना है तो बादाम खाओ. Right? Is there some right thing about having almonds for bettering our brains?
There is actually, because it's rich in omega-3.
Right.
And omega-3, we have enough data to show that these are the good fats, the good chemicals that we need to give to our brain. So these old tales, if we go into, there's always actually something very strong in them. We tend to ignore it when we want to not sound that scientific, but old wives' tale works. So badam actually works. You know, they say pani, sabse pehle in the morning have a glass of water. It actually works. Think about it. You're hydrating your body first thing in the morning. Your energy levels will be different.
Correct.
So simple things like that, they do work.
So there's wisdom in what people used to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, and brain food is actually real. Mediterranean diet does work. So that's something we didn't, next time maybe we'll talk about. But it's actually there's good data to show that it's very good for us if we follow the Mediterranean diet when it comes to brain health.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Dr. Sonia, you know what actually stayed with me during this conversation is the fact that how casually do we take our brains?
Yeah.
You know, we focus on our relationships, we focus on our work, we focus on our financial well-being, but we tend to forget focusing on what actually runs all of this.
Absolutely.
You know, so thank you so much for this conversation and bringing this attention back to the two most important things that I have seen among people today. One is headaches, and with the population that our country is, where we are moving towards the middle-aged population, dementia is something that we really need to focus on. So thank you so much for taking our time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much, Ram. Thank you.